In this video, I'm going to show you how you can deploy a previously created Docker image into AWS using AWS's Elastic Container Service. In particular, I'm going to show you how you can use the newly released Elastic Container Service Fargate feature, which allows you to deploy images without creating any extra infrastructure. It makes it significantly easier than it was in the past. So I assume that you've already created an image, and if you've watched previous videos about this, then you might have seen me create the image that I'm going to deploy today. I'm also assuming that you have an AWS account already created, and we will log in and open up the container service. So Elastic Container Service. Here we go. Let's get started. And it's going to guide us through creating the deployment. So here, when you deploy into container service, you need to define what your container contains. And we don't want to deploy a sample app or Nginx. We want to deploy something that we've previously created, like I said. So let's name our container Hello World. And here's where I have previously published the container. So let's take that name and put it right here. Now, Amazon's ECS nicely supports pulling images directly from Docker Hub, so this makes it very simple. And in my case, the HTTP port that I was exposing in my container was port 4000. So I want to make sure that I add that to my container definition so that it'll be exposed. Okay. So now I've told ECS about the container itself. I also need to teach it how I want that container deployed. And I want to edit this task definition to make it a little bit nicer. I'm going to call this Hello World. And like I said, we're using Fargate, which makes deployment significantly easier. And here I'm going to say I need just 512 meg of memory is fine. And the lowest CPU possible is fine because this service does nothing but respond with Hello World on every request. So there we go. Here we probably don't need to create an application load balancer, but I'm going to do it just because it's a very good practice. An application load balancer would allow you to have a single endpoint that load balances between multiple instances of your service. In our case, I don't expect to get a very high load. I don't expect to need more than one instance of my service, but it's just almost always the best practice to create an application load balancer for your services. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And all it's saying here is that the load balancer is going to expose port 4000, which is the port that I had told the container that I was exposing for my service. So now this is the part that Fargate is helping me manage. In the past, I used to have to create a new cluster and manage the EC2 instances inside of it, but Fargate does it all for me, and all it asks is that I give it a name. I'm going to name it to match my service just because it's the only thing I plan to use it for. So I will name it Hello World. Okay, now we just need to review and see. So this should all be like we entered. And create. I'm going to speed this process up a bit because there's no point in watching the spinners, but if you run this yourself, it'll take a couple minutes. Okay, Amazon created all of the infrastructure we needed and deployed our cluster, our task, and our service. And so we can check it out and see if it's running. So to check it out, we have a View Service button here. You can see I have a desired count of 1 and a pending count of 1, which means that the instance is not totally started yet. But we should be able to refresh and see it start soon enough. Right. On this page you can see the link to the load balancing target group that was created for us, and we want to use this to find the hostname that this is going to be exposed on. So let's go to the console for this. And a target group is just a collection of targets that a load balancer will use. So we need to go one level up from this. We have a target group, and now we need to go back to the load balancer itself. And it's going to be down here. So here's the link to the load balancer itself. And for the load balancer, it's going to get a DNS name. And this is the DNS name that we're going to use to hit our service. So I'm going to copy it. And maybe by now the service is finished deploying and it's running. So let's try it out. We'll use curl to hit the endpoint and check it. It's exposed on an insecure port, HTTP, port 4000. And there you go, a hello world response. So the service is deployed.